Hi, welcome to the Rose at Home channel. I am Rose, and today we're going to talk about the costs of being under contract on your new home. Yes, there are a lot of costs associated with buying a home. We're told, you need to have a really big down payment. We're told you need to make sure you have closing costs. But the parts that at least I didn't know about were all the parts in between. So let's talk about that right now. First off, let's talk about the things that you might actually not have to have on your person immediately. And those are those things I just mentioned. You actually might not need the big down payment. There are, for first-time home buyers, a lot of different programs that will help or even completely cover that. I was under a program that is called Hometown Heroes. We have it here in Florida, but I did a little searching and there are a number of states that have the same or similar programs. So if you're not here in Florida, you might want to take a search if you fit the parameters. So it is for first-time home buyers who are teachers, like I am, law enforcement, firefighters, EMTs, all of those types of careers that are public service oriented without big pay for the work that we do. And so definitely if you fall in that category, give that a search and see if there is a program that will help you out if you are a first-time home buyer. And the rules for first-time home buyers with this program are a little more lax than for others. It doesn't necessarily have to be the first home you've ever owned. I believe you just have to not currently own a home to get this assistance. For some states, it might be that you need to have not owned a home within a certain amount of time. You need to have been renting for 6 months or a year or something like that. Definitely do your research, but if you are a hometown hero, definitely look into that. It can cover that, so you don't have to have a down payment ready. They also talk about closing costs. Now, Hometown Heroes and some of the other programs the pot of money can be divided up between either the down payment or the closing costs to definitely help you out. Or if you are trying to buy a home here at the start of 2023, the market has cooled from everything that I understand. And so what we were able to do with my home is that we asked the seller to cover the closing costs. So I don't have any closing costs at the table. They are covering that out of their equity in the home. And so the things that they tell you, oh, you got to make sure you have this, you got to make sure you have that, I didn't have to have. But there's other things that you absolutely do have to have, and they come straight out of your pocket. You have to make sure that you are prepared for these costs. And for years I've been told, like, oh, because you're a teacher, because you're this, because you don't already own a home, you can just, but you don't have to have any money, you can just go and buy a house and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I didn't think that was the case. But yeah, there are costs associated with being under contract on a home, and some of them need to be paid really, really quickly. And so that's what I want to make sure that you are prepared for. So first, you have to have what is called earnest money. It is actually a deposit, and it has to come out of your pocket. It doesn't get covered by any of those other programs, or at least it didn't here for me. And so earnest money is generally, it is approximately 1%, it could even be 2% of the asking price that you are agreeing to, or of the cost that you are agreeing to pay for the home. And it is the seller's way of knowing that you are serious. And when I first heard of this, which literally it was prior to going under contract, but my real estate agent, was telling me about the things to expect to have to pay for, and I was like, well, of course I'm serious. Why wouldn't they believe that I'm serious? And I thought about it some, and I actually watched a YouTube video of a woman who was thrift shopping, and she had a cart, and she's on the aisle, and she's like, I'm just gonna put everything I like in this cart, and then at the end, I'll decide which ones I want and which I want to put back. And I was like, I get it. Yes, earnest money. It's to keep people from saying, okay, well, I know I'm going to want a house. I'll just put all of these under contract and then I'll decide which one I want. And that keeps other people from being able to get them. It keeps the seller from possibly making a sale that they could have made had that not happened. And so it's to make sure, again, that you are serious. You're not just considering it, you are ready to go. And so, yes, that is what earnest money is. And again, everything here has been my experience, so definitely do your research as far as timelines and things. For the contract, the general contract was you had 5 days, and weekends don't matter, holidays don't matter, nothing matters. You got 5 days to pay this earnest money, and you pay it to, here in Florida, it was to the title company. One thing that my real estate agent was able to do for me is when we originally went under contract, we offered what was less than 1%, but it was still a good amount of money. And she told me that they might come back and say, no, we want the full 1% in earnest money. And the money doesn't go to them. They don't get it. It's not going to affect things on their end. But again, it's we want to make sure you're serious. But they had no qualms with it. They had no problem with it. So it was possible to go under, but it was still, we're not talking 20 bucks. It was a good 4 figures of money that I had to have ready to go, and I had 5 days to pay that. And if you don't pay it, you are in breach of contract, and so you have to make sure that you pay that. The next thing that I had to pay for was the property inspection. And depending on your type of loan, you will be required to get different types of inspections. If you are getting a VA loan, they're expecting the property to be pretty pristine. They're expecting there to be very few, if any, flaws with the property. They don't want anything to be wrong with it. So one thing that you might do, my daughter and her husband did this, they actually hired an inspector to go with them to their first walkthrough, not to like open houses, but when they were serious enough to go and see a property with their real estate agent, they hired an inspector to go with them. And I mentioned this to my real estate agent. She was like, that would be so expensive. But when you consider the fact that there are so many requirements for a VA loan, it actually worked out in their favor because they didn't want to emotionally invest in something that the VA would not loan them money to purchase, and they didn't want to financially pay for earnest money, pay for a full inspection, and then find out they can't get a loan on it and they have to start over and over and over again. And so in the long run, it was probably cost saving for them. If I were to do this again, granted, I ended up making an offer on the first house that my agent took me through, so it wouldn't have been necessary. But if I were to do this again and was thinking of seeing multiple homes, I would probably do the same thing, even though that wouldn't be my type of loan. I wouldn't need a VA loan, but just somebody who can immediately say, hey, this is something, ooh, I see. They're not obviously not inspecting it while you're walking through, but those obvious things, there was wood rot on the front of this house that it didn't even dawn on me to go look behind those hedges. An inspector would have walked back there immediately and said, we got issues. My house, I don't think VA would have, in the state that it was in when I made the offer, VA wouldn't have accepted it because of that rot. Now we're getting that rot fixed. Yay! But yeah, so it would have been problematic. So anyway, the inspection. Luckily for me, I have a great real estate agent with wonderful connections, and she did give me a list of home inspectors, and I picked the one off the top of the list. She had shown me, he'll do a video kind of overview, like these are the main problems that he sees with the house, but then you get the full inspection report with everything. And I had seen his video for someone else's property, so she had shown me that just to know what to expect. And so I was like, this is great. And I walked in to meet him at the inspection, and you know those people where you just feel calm when you're in their presence? That was this guy. It was amazing. It was wonderful, and it was awesome. It wasn't cheap though. These home inspections do cost money. And you also, so what we had to do, we got the inspection and I got the inspection report back, and there were 2 pages that the insurance company needed that were blank. And they're blank for a reason. It's not like they're trying to scam you or anything. It's because the insurance company, to insure properties, is also going to need specific things done before they're going to insure something. So the specific things that insurance company needs are extra, and they don't do them on the first inspection so that you're not having to pay for a full re-inspection. You can just deal with getting the things fixed and all of that, and it, in the end, saved money and time. So I had to pay for the inspection, and then I had to pay for the those final two were a separate cost. I also had to pay for what is called a wood destroying organism inspection. That person came out at the same time, walked the property, was the first one to show me the wood rot, because his concern with wood rot is that it's a way for pests to enter the home and that kind of thing. So they're looking for termite damage. They're looking for ways that pests might get in. In this house, there's a crack in the driveway, and there was quite obviously a whole bunch of ants that had set up house there. He wasn't interested in the ant. Like, I care about the ants. I don't want ants in my driveway. Those ants aren't hurting the house. And so that's not the kind of thing he's looking for. He's looking for things that are in the house, that are damaging the house, or could potentially do damage to the house. And so that was another inspection that I had to pay for. Depending on where you are and the age of the home, there are other inspections that you also might want to pay for. One of them would be what's called a sewer scope or a plumbing scope. If you've got plumbing that is older than, like your house was built in the 50s, 60s, it's possible that you have clay pipes that go out to the main line. And I only know this because I've seen multiple YouTubers who bought houses and then almost immediately had to have major plumbing work done because pipes burst. So what happens is those clay pipes, trees grow through those clay pipes, causing ruptures, and then you have to have that whole thing dug up and new pipes put in. And if you'd gotten a plumbing scope where they send a camera down through and you can see, are there roots through these pipes? Are there places where they're already cracked? And then you can go back to the seller and say, hey, this is broken on your property. We need you to fix it or pay to have it fixed before we're willing to buy it. That way it's not on you. But if you don't get the inspection, it might be on you. My house was built in 89, 90. And so that's not a concern, so I didn't need to do that. But that is something, if you've got a home that's old, a home that's older than me, then you probably want to have that done. Another thing that you might want to have inspected, if you have this, is a septic system inspection. My home is on city water and city sewers, so I don't have a septic tank, but if the home comes with a septic tank, you really want to have someone inspect it. Those are very, very expensive to have replaced, and they're not this scale of doing an inspection to know for sure that it's in good working order. I don't think falls under a regular home inspection. That would be something special. So those are other inspections you might want to pay for, but you pay the vendor who does them pretty much immediately. I got email bills for all of those before the inspections even happened. Like, they sent me a bill with a link to an online to pay it, paid it online, so it was all set before it went through. I don't pay cash or use my bank account for stuff. I put them on credit cards and then pay it out of my account. So I had the money in my account, but I was able to pay it on a credit card, and you can do it that way. You don't want to pay it on a credit card and leave it on the credit card because that affects your debt to income ratio. And again, these things add up, they get pretty pricey, and so you don't want to then have your loan denied because all of a sudden you have a huge balance on a credit card that you didn't pay for. And the last thing that I had to pay out of pocket, which ended up being the most expensive, was the property appraisal. So the bank has their person that they send out, but they will send you a like a bill still, same as the others. You'll get a thing in the mail with an invoice. You go ahead and pay it online, and the person will come out. They take a whole bunch of pictures of the property, and they send this fairly detailed report about the value of your property. The bank insists on, or whoever is loaning you the money insists on it, because they're not going to loan you $200,000 for a house worth $150,000. It just doesn't work that way. How do people buy homes that are like when the market is really hot? How are people buying those homes? Because they're making up the difference out of their pocket. So, but I'm not making up difference out of my pocket. Luckily for me, my appraisal came out a little bit over the cost of the home. I think I mentioned that in another video. And so, but because we were under contract, they couldn't raise the price because it appraised for a few thousand over. But I go into this with a teeny tiny bit of equity, which is just mentally a nice place to be. I'm not looking to do anything with that. I just like knowing that there's a little bit of space there that I already have, value in. I own a home that I already have value in. So that's really nice for me. So one other thing that happened, when you get your appraisal they emailed it to me. So when you get that, like, look through the whole thing, especially the pictures, because they take pictures of everything. The inspection didn't even make note of this. It's not something that necessarily on their radar, but there was, hopefully it's not still there, but there was a bunch of trash, like literal trash bags and boxes in the attic space. I don't have an attic like you can go up and walk around, but there is attic space between the roof and the ceiling. And so there were literal bags of trash up there. And the only way I know that is because there were pictures of the trash in the appraisal. So you absolutely want to look at all of those pictures in your appraisal and make sure there's nothing that you're not expecting in those images. And the last thing I want to talk about are the things that I thought I was going to have to pay out of pocket, and it turned out that I didn't. One of them was the survey of the property. It was actually listed in the list of things that I was going to be responsible for from my agent, but looking at my loan documents, it's actually in there in the closing costs for the mortgage. So I didn't have to pay for the survey. I'm hoping, though, that since it's in the mortgage and I am paying for it in that way, that I'll get it, in part because I do want to put up a fence and I need the survey to know exactly where I can put the fence, because there is no fenced outside area on the property at this point. The other thing that I had thought I would have to pay out of pocket, and I don't, is the homeowner's insurance. The homeowner's insurance is also in the mortgage, and they pay out the first full year so it's in, I think it's in the closing costs or in the cost of the mortgage, one of the two, and they pay out the homeowner's insurance for the first year, and then they collect, like, your mortgage is one amount, and then there are additional things that they collect money for, and your homeowner's insurance is part of that. And so the homeowner's insurance is all I had to, like, pick an agency and pick a person, and well, I fully expected that I would have to pay some sort of down payment or something for my homeowner's insurance, but I didn't. It's all in the mortgage, and when I make my mortgage payments, that also covers my insurance. I also do not have to pay any taxes right now out of pocket, and they collect for the property taxes as part of the mortgage as well. So there are things that I thought I was going to have to pay that I don't, but I really had no idea that all of those inspections and all of those people that needed to go out and look at the property would cost as much as they did. And so you want to make sure you have probably about between $1,500 and $2,000 that you can put out right now. There are ways to get around there are programs for your down payment assistance. There are ways to get help with your closing costs, and you can even put that off on the seller. But all of those other fees, you have to have that money on you and ready to go. Make sure that you've got that so that you're not surprised and you don't lose out on your house. If you found this informative or enjoyable in any way, I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel. I do first-time homebuyer videos every week, and we're not going to have too many more of those because I'm 2 weeks out of closing on this house, and then we're going to have first-time home owner videos where we're going to talk about all sorts of things about getting into your house and figuring out how to do all of the stuff that you don't have to do when you're a renter. So I really hope you'll stick around. If you are interested in my journey so far, I'm going to link a playlist and obviously that subscribe button. So I'd love to have you stick around, and I will see you next week. Bye.